All right, we are live back in the Fireside PM podcast. I've got Jesse Chor, the founder and CEO of the startup Tanda, and a successful entrepreneur. Welcome to the show, Jesse. And how's your Sunday going?
Sunny's going great. It was just raining, but now it's sunny again, so it's looking good.
Yeah, that was some serious rain yesterday. I lost power 2 days ago. Did you have continuous power?
I did this time, but I actually bought a generator, so I'm ready. I'm ready for the next one. Got natural.
You're hoping for it to kind of fire that thing up.
Yeah, justify because over the years I'm like, oh, I'm gonna buy a generator, and I finally did. So that's it. Yeah.
That's great. And you decided not to get like a large wall battery or something like that?
No, because I lose power up to like 4 days, and so when I look at the battery, it won't last long enough. And then at that
Oh
point, you're gonna
yeah.
need solar, and then just like it's not gonna.
Yeah.
To me, a battery's a buffer, which is great, but it's not gonna be a buffer enough unless I have like 20 batteries. So it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So if there's a zombie apocalypse, I'm gonna have to drive over to your place.
Yeah. Like come on by, and well, we'll see how long the natural gas lasts. But yes, I got a tri-fuel one, so yeah, we can definitely.
I love it. So you and I were talking about having a show discussion around how people can get into product management. And I thought, yeah, that is a great topic because you can't major in product management as an undergrad, and there's some APM programs out there, but not that many. What's your kind of assessment of um, how people that are not in product now but want to get into it, and particularly earlier in their careers, what advice do you have for them?
I got lots. I think it's such a great role, but it's so nebulous. I think we should probably first discuss what is a product. What is
Sure.
a product manager and what does that mean? But yeah, definitely. I just see, despite how the headlines are, I just see a lot of opportunity in product, and it's something where, especially as we dive in more to AI, we really need humans to really think high level order bit, like what is most useful for the customer and things we're trying to do. And so definitely, I feel the value chain goes up and up for PM and PM roles. But definitely, there's very nebulous. So yeah, I think why don't I ask you, Tom? How you define what is a product manager, and let's compare notes. But yeah, definitely want to dive
Yeah.
into, like, how do you get into it? How do you become one? How do you interview? All that.
Yeah, what a fun way to start it, because I kind of feel like you can get very different answers on what a product manager is. When I got started, there was a lot of discussion of like product manager versus program manager versus project manager, and then maybe a little bit of versus like brand manager.
Yep.
And I think when I hear the term product manager today in 2024, I tend to think of the tech company that is looking for an individual to work on a feature or a product where their job is to help figure out what should we build next, why, for what kind of user, and is this the highest and best use of our finite resources? And they'll generally work cross-functionally with an engineering counterpart, a design counterpart, often a marketing counterpart, but they're often kind of the hub of the wheel. That's my kind of short definition. What's your read on it?
That's good. That's a good start. Just based on the description you shared, though, I feel like even sales intersects a lot with that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. And then I'll share, like, I'll start with what I hear a lot, and then I'll talk about my definition. So, a programmer who doesn't code. So a lot of people do that, right? And then I'm sure you heard of like a mini CEO of the department, or X, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then a jack of all trades, and you know the rest. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, to me it's very similar, but I think a product manager is someone who just drives. They drive without authority. It's their job to really figure out in the tech setting, anyways, really figure out a product, who's the customer, and really kind of get us there, and make it happen. And so To your point, yes, they typically tend to be a hub. However, usually a lot of PMs work in as teams, and so there's a web of them. So even though they might be a hub as a function, but as an individual, that you might be a spoke as well. So it's a very dynamic role, and so in many ways, I think it's a very interesting, exciting role because there's just a lot of opportunity.
You said something that really kind of triggered me in a good way. You said, well, some definitions out there are like, well, it's like someone who wanted to be a software engineer who doesn't code, or I've heard a similar one, which is like, oh, that's for people who didn't make it as a SWE, moved into product. And I think there are probably cases where that can happen. I guess I would take the position that, especially as you move up in your kind of career, the challenge of picking the right next bet for the right reasons and then getting everyone to align on that is really, really, really hard. And it is a kind of something that you can spend a career trying to master. And because you're kind of a little bit of an investor, you're making bets. You're also a little bit of a scientist because obviously you want to kind of bear that out with data and iterate, but you're also like a ringleader trying to kind of win over very opinionated people. And so I do feel like a former engineer may for sure start out very fast out of the blocks in terms of their technical expertise.
Yeah.
But those other skills, they aren't something that we're all born with. And we all have different levels of them. What's your read on that theme?
No, that's spot on. I think there's some headwinds and tailwinds. So I'll share, like, they call it like leading without authority, like as a product manager. And we're talking about titles too, but as a product manager, say, hey, your job is to lead this product initiative, but people don't, the engineers don't report to you, right? And so there's always this, like, how do you corral and get people there? I use myself as an example. So I studied computer science in college, and very early on, because I went to school, we did co-op. I interned at Microsoft, and so in a product role, I thought, I really love presentations. So I was like, I want to be a product manager at PowerPoint. And so going to software originally and software roles, then I switched to become a PM at Microsoft to be an intern. And then that's where, to your point, I felt like, being a software engineer, you definitely have an advantage because technically you understand these things. And I remember even talking to contractors. I'm like, really? It's going to take that long? I don't think so. I can do that myself. And how much do you get paid? I'm like, oh, maybe I should be a software engineer again. So, but I think that the headwind, it actually hurts and helps you in some ways. But what I mean by that is, technical background, great. It helps you give you a boost initially. But as you start growing and moving up the value stack, then it becomes more about leading. It becomes less about how technical you are. Obviously, technical is important, but it becomes more about consensus driving, intuition, and really kind of more business analytics and all these other soft skills you start needing, managing up. Then technical could actually hurt you because you might have put all your chips in one basket and you haven't really learned other ways. And so I think, and this is why this field is so dynamic, meaning you can have a boost in the earlier phases of your career, or you can have a boost for your later stages of your career. So it really depends on your background.
Yeah, let's be fair. I don't want to be super hard on the former SWEs that are now in product. Let's talk about the other example, which is like the non-technical people. Maybe the classic one is the MBAs that go into product. And they generally are pretty strong in terms of being generalists and understanding business and maybe a little bit of leadership stuff. But they often struggle in that they don't really understand how the product actually works under the hood. And that can cause them to recommend roadmaps or product strategies that are less viable, or they're just missing some key opportunity because they don't really understand how things are working. What's your read and advice for those types?
Oh man, that's a treasure trove. I think it depends on the company. So my info might be a little bit out of date here, but I'll use Amazon example. So historically, at least back in the day I'm aware of Amazon, they only hire technical PMs, and they would say you have to be an MBA, minimum to start. And I'm sure there's a lot of reasons for it, but when you're thinking about like a PM for S3, hey, I'm here to build storage and blocks. It's very technical in nature, so it's less about business and the customer in the typical consumer sense. Their customers obviously enterprise or software companies or whatever. But I think for a consumer company, requiring an MBA is probably not the right thing in my view. Like I use my company as an example. Like as we think about PMs, we're not looking for an MBA. MBA is great. Like yes, we want that breadth and depth. However, that's not critical. And so I think for those who went to MBA school, again, depending on the company, it could be advantage or disadvantage. Meaning like you learn a lot in this subject, in this area, and have this expertise, but what we require of you might not be used as much. And so I think, again, it depends on the company and role and even team. So yeah, definitely. That's why I think it's important as you think about, or people considering being a PM, they should really think about what plays to their strengths and their passion, and kind of really kind of dive that and find the right intersection. So just because you're a good PM at one company in one place doesn't mean you'll be a good PM somewhere else. Case in point, even if you're a good PM on a team at a company, if you go to different divisions, that might be a really bad fit. And so again, it's a very dynamic role.
Yeah, I have similar thoughts on the MBA, to the extent that if your goal is to be a great PM, you do not need an MBA. In fact, if you are just getting into product, your MBA will have some value, but not a whole lot. Ironically, I think as you move up in your career and your product role becomes more of a product business leadership role, strategy role, organizational leader role, budget management, that kind of stuff, then that MBA actually is very relevant. But unfortunately, like, people graduate with an MBA at a point where they're kind of earlier in their PM career. So it is a long bet. And definitely not required if you want to break into the field.
Yeah.
One thing I get people asking me about, Jesse, is like, well, how do I break in? Like, a lot of these PM jobs, they say they require people with 2 or 3 years of PM experience, even for an early PM job. What advice do you give them?
Yeah, no, that's a great one. So I think well, let's start with the landscape. So you're right. Like a lot of companies say, hey, we only hire senior product managers, like senior plus. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is because if you were to interview and survey PMs, hey, what's your background? I think it's very diverse, right? There's no common college degree. It could be anything. And in fact, in the Hall of Fame of PMs, I think we're the greatest. Some were a history major, one was a drill sergeant in the army, and doing hostage negotiations, things like that. And so there's all kinds of different backgrounds. But yeah, I think it's kind of like 0 to 1. Who's going to give me a shot at just getting that first gig so I can get something on the resume? I think that's really kind of the first move. And then is there a company that's willing to hire and foster and grow earlier PMs? And so there are certainly some. I'll list some in a minute, but I think it's really finding that intersection. But yeah, I think it comes down to how to get your first job or internship and doing that. I have a lot of practical tips of how to do it. But yeah, I think those are the key things. And then finding a company that's willing to take someone in at an earlier stage.
Yeah, just to build on that, I think what I sometimes suggest for folks who if they say, hey, look, I've applied for all the PM roles and it's not happening. Even, especially now, there's so much talent on the market right now that, if a hiring manager has a coveted spot and they are looking at a pool of candidates for this PM role, and they have a bunch that have been doing basically the same job at similar companies and are available, like, you can't blame them for prioritizing those versus like this other person who may have a lot of potential, but they've not done it before in a formal sense. My advice to some of those folks is like, just get your foot in the door. If you've not worked at a tech company, like, just maybe work in an adjacent role, like in inside sales or product specialist or project manager, or whatever is available, like even volunteer to, if you're in college, work for free. And that will sometimes kind of give you like that little bit of a toehold to then build into the next thing. What's your read on kind of the side door approach?
Yeah, I would say make your side door the front door, right? Because a lot of opportunities don't really exist in a lot of people's realm. So I'll give you an example. The simplest is just start a company. Just say, I'm a founder and my role is product. I'm leading product for this company. Get a few friends or something to start it. And now you're a founder and you're doing it. And you can do everything you want to satisfy those things. And I think what's interesting is a lot of people on the outside, they look at it as like, you put founder on your resume. What they don't realize is a lot of employers highly value that, because you think about like, what do employers want? They want a self-starter, someone who's motivated, someone who quote unquote gets shit done. And by literally being a founder and trying something, even if it fails, that's great. Like that really shows initiative, and that helps you stand out compared to all these candidates who went to business school, did all these classic things, but yet there's no differentiator. But if you actually led something and started something, you might actually have better experience than incumbents in these areas. So a great example is like, AI is hot today. And so if you were a quote unquote startup founder doing generative AI and leading product for these things, you're already, you think about the people who are ahead of you at most are what, like 2 years ahead of you, whatever it is. So it's not you could really level the playing field very quickly. And so, so definitely I think starting a company, I like your other point about joining a startup for free. Reach out to them, talk to them, say, hey, I would really love to learn product. I am here to serve coffee and help, but I just want to learn how the wheels work for product. There's so many stories about how people really kind of got their foot in the door with something really simple. Read up on Gary Tan on how he started YC, just taking photos, right? Like at startup school, and then now look at him today. And so just being there and being helpful is just goes a long way to being a PM.
Jesse, when you're interviewing PMs for your team, what are the kind of characteristics or capabilities that you're looking for that you value?
Yeah, I think aside from like the standard things like technical and experience, I think the things that really stand out is probably like experience in leading people. And it starts more simple. It's like, hey, do you play sports? What do you do, right? Besides work. And so if you started a team, I play hockey. So it's like, hey, if you start a hockey team, you're almost hired just with that. But it could be anything, right? Like, I really like crocheting and I created a crochet club. Or I really like film and I created a film club. And so it doesn't really matter what the subject is, but the point is you're so passionate about something that you created a group of people, and there was the longer the better. And so I think having initiatives like that are pretty key. But standard things is like does this person have leadership initiative, experience, empathy? Do they have a lot of customer empathy and empathy for people? Can they understand things? Are they willing to? They might have convictions, but are the convictions such that, like, if the facts don't match, they're able to remap that, or are they really stubborn? So there's all kinds of things I would look for. But in the end, I kind of base it on the culture of our company, the culture of our team, what we're trying to do, and will this person flourish in our environment? So a lot of it, for me, it depends on what is their ambition, what do they want to do, what do they want to achieve, and does that map to opportunities that we have? And if it doesn't, I would even share, hey, I don't think we're a good fit for you, but I know these companies in these roles might be. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Let's take the example where somebody managed to kind of get their foot in the door, and let's just say hypothetically they offered to join Tanda, and they're like, look, I mean, I'm happy to do whatever. And you're like, all right, well, if you want to volunteer and help us, do market development or outreach to prospective customers or something, I'll give you a shot. And the person got that opportunity. What's the path for getting their foot in the door to eventually having a PM role? What's that look like?
Well, that's a great one, and we should dive deeper too on how to apply it in general. But yeah, I think number one I look for is probably like, is this person mentorable and coachable? Because in the end, it's like they don't have the experience, they don't have the like. It's not like they can just drop in and work right away and be productive. So either way, we're
Mhm.
gonna have to spend time to coach and mentor and guide them, and we have limit. As a startup in any company, you have limited resources and time for that. So we don't have infinite bandwidth to train and coach people. So that's one. So are they mentorable and coachable? Number two is, are they trustworthy? Meaning, are they going to come here on time? Are they going to work hard? Are they going to do all these things? I don't care how smart you are. If you don't have the drive and ambition, all these things, then the IQ doesn't really matter. And then the third thing is really like, how excited are you going to be? What kind of energy are you going to bring to the team and the culture? Because you're going to come in and just drag everything down. That's not great. But if you're going to come in and uplift the team and bring something better, like that's totally worth it. So for me, to be like those three things.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I think my take on this is most managers want to give you more work. Like they would be delighted to have their team do more stuff. Uh, and it really is all about demonstrating that whatever they gave you last week, like you did it, you were on top of it. Ideally, you exceeded their expectations
Yeah.
and you're kind of ready for more. And you really don't have to ask too much. Like from time to time, it might make sense to make sure that they know what you're looking for. But in general, I've seen the opposite happen sometimes where people are like, hey, when can I take on a more senior role, or when am I going to be ready for promotion? And the hardest conversations are the ones where you're thinking to yourself, I kind of asked you to do a bunch of stuff last week, and that hasn't that hasn't been done. And here we are talking about why you should be level N+2. Um, so that's always a tough one, but it's a hard balance to strike. You mentioned, Jesse, we should dig in a little bit to even applying for roles and how to do so, and it is a unique time where it's we've seen cycles in the past. Like I remember after the financial crisis, feels like we're in another one where there's a lot of talent and not as many roles as there were 2 years ago. That ratio is kind of flipped. What advice do you have for people even finding roles, finding companies, and applying for them?
Yeah. So my number one advice is watch the movie Catch Me If You Can. Start with that, and I'll explain why.
Okay.
So, as interviewees or prospective candidates, we're not experts at interviewing. If we are, that's a different problem. But right, but we don't. That's not our career. Like
Hmm.
we're not really experts, and we don't do this every day. And so we're not really good at applying and answering questions. And I often think, like, at least earlier when I used to apply for jobs, like if someone would just give me a shot, just give me the job, I know I can do it. But darn, these interviews are horrible. It's just such a grind, right? And so and I think that's true. I think a lot of candidates actually have the ability to do the job, and if they given the opportunity, but the employer doesn't know that. And also, there's a lot of candidates, and so number one, watch Catch Me If You Can, because I'm saying it this way. Imagine like, or I feel like a lot of times I feel like I know I can do it. I just don't know how to apply. I'm not very good. However, if I can only have the talents of a con person or a con woman and apply for the job and get the job, but I can actually do it, boy, would that be sweet, right? And so for me, it's really the marriage of the two. Okay, how can you have a more effective way of applying and get in, and then doing the job is real, like that's on you. But at least how do you get through that? So number one is I would actually break down all job applications into three phases. Number one is you're going to apply. Number two, you have an interview, and then number three is negotiate an offer. And so if you break that down, it's really like I would actually draw a map or a funnel and say, okay, am I getting interviews? Like if you're stuck and not getting offers, you should really think about, am I getting interviews? Great. I'm getting a lot of interviews now. Am I passing these interviews? Great. Okay. I know I'm not passing, but at least I'm getting interviews. And then finally, if you're getting a lot of offers, good problem to have. Then you figure out, how do you negotiate? And so, obviously getting interviews is the number one barrier. But a lot of people are stuck at the second stage, right? Hey, I'm getting a lot of interviews now, but I'm not passing. So my number one advice is, when you apply, do not apply online, because it's a waste of time. What I mean by that is, you think about any major company, look at the stats. Like Tom, like at Google, how many resume applications do they get a month? Like hundreds of thousands or something, right? Like some
Yeah, I think ultimately, like maybe single digit percent would get a recruiter screen,
Yep.
and then maybe a small single digit percent would get passed on for the first round interview. So like the funnel collapses very quickly at the very top.
And as a hiring manager for many organizations, here's the interesting thing. For the candidates that make it through the standard application process, they're generally not a great fit for the final role. And the reason is because every filtering stage, the person or entity filtering is not me, is not the hiring manager, it's someone else.
Yeah.
And so you're gonna get like a little broken telephone where they're filtering for keywords, they're filtering for very generic
Mhm.
things. And so when you narrow that down, there's a reason why it's so bad at the end. And so for the people that are applying, you're actually doing yourself a disservice. And then there's another thing that a lot of people don't realize is a lot of companies will blacklist someone in the sense that, oh, we already filtered them, so we can just cut them out of the we don't have to look at that one anymore. And so that's another, if you look at a lot of recruiting systems, like that happens. Like, oh, you take a look at the name and email. No, we've already marked them now not a good fit. And then you've kind of been like marked as not a good fit, and that might be a while that you're in the system lingering as not a good fit. And so I say don't waste your shot online. Like meaning the standard like apply on the slash jobs. Now this is for tech roles that have a lot of volume. I think there are other jobs where apply online could make sense, but just like standard tech companies for PM roles, I don't advise it. What I do advise, like all things, and this is what catch me if you can, but is network. Like if you can network and find someone to make an intro, that is like infinitely better because let's call it 1% conversion. You apply online, you at best 1%, not even. It's like fraction of a percent. But if you get a referral from someone, you have a very very high chance at least getting a phone screen, at least getting an interview, or even further. So definitely use LinkedIn. Find someone that has some kind of connection to you. So as an example, I went to the University of Waterloo, and we have a huge alumni network. I get alumni requests all the time from students and other things. And because we're from the same tribe, we help each other. Yeah, sure. You went to our school. I don't mind recommending you to the company. I don't mind giving you advice. You can even ask, hey, what's it like to work there? What's it like to be in the industry? And so number one, if you went to the same school, that helps. Number two is, like I like hockey. And so even if someone didn't go to the same school and they like hockey, they say, hey, do you need a goalie? I'm like, hired. Yeah. So finding common interest from someone in the industry, it works too. But I would say spend more time on that than applying online. Because if you can get someone to intro you, make a referral, it's so much better, so much easier. And so the number one red flag I see is, and I see this a lot right now, I applied to over 100 jobs this week. As soon as I hear that, I'm like, what are you doing? Like don't do that. Like you're literally throwing away time, like in energy and effort. And of course that's very defeating. Like it's much better to network with people, try to get a hold of them and see if they're willing to spend some time so that they can recommend you or learn from. Like that's what I would do. Network, get a referral and punch in. And that's yeah. I don't think there's a better way.
Let's talk about networking. What are some characteristics of folks who you've seen do it more successfully? So let's say when you think about the last 10 Waterloo people who reached out to you, I'm guessing some you were able to help more than others. What made the difference between like the most successful networkers and the ones that didn't get as much help?
That's a good one. I feel like are they an asshole? like the way they ask. If you come in like, who are you? And I haven't seen that from Waterloo, but I've seen that from other places. Like, whoa, like okay, I'm trying to help you out, but like what? So the sense of entitlement doesn't work. But I like there's a professor at Waterloo that taught me this a long time ago. His name is Larry Smith. So Waterloo is famous for economics and entrepreneurial, but he goes, don't underestimate your power and advantage of being a student. So I'll give you an example. He'd be like, hey, if you're networking as a student, that's the best thing. Reach out to some senior corporate person, hey, I'm a student at Waterloo, I'm studying X. I would love to learn more about this. Would it be okay if I get a coffee with you? And then like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, soft spot for students. Oh, like same school. Yeah, there's a chance. And so when he shared that with me, I still use that to this day where, wow, like that, I reach out to very senior executives, very successful founders. Hey, I'm just a 3X entrepreneur, but nowhere near you, but I would love to learn more about this. And that goes a long way. A lot of them do respond and they're willing to meet up. And so I think this true desire to learn and giving opportunities for someone to give back, because people generally, I believe in the goodwill of people where they do want to give back, they do want to help. And so if you do in a way where, hey, I think I can help this person, or there's a little bit of common interest, there's common something, I think, that will go a long way. And so I think really learning how to ask for help in a, quote unquote, non-asshole way, that goes a long way in making it work.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would add a couple other observations from my experience working with students or early career people who are networking. One is that it is a long game. So if you reach out to an alum and you think like, okay, after this call, I'm going to get a job as a PM in their organization, like sometimes, it takes longer. I guess I would say most of the time it will take longer. Um, and that means that these some networking outreaches are often not one and done, that you may need to kind of reach out to the person again a couple months from now and give them an update and have a legitimate thing that you want their help on, because that builds kind of rapport and kind of consistency. I think the second thing that I don't see as many people do, but sometimes I do, is the student or the networker will say like, oh, I see that you volunteer for this organization or you're working on this. I'd love to just help if I can. I don't need to be paid or anything, but if there's any way I can pitch in, let me know. And I always remember those people, especially if they then follow through.
Yep.
Because then you're like, okay, like, yes, they can do things where they can solve a problem and they come back to you and they're coachable or whatever. So that's something that I've seen as well. Jesse, let's talk a little bit about this current job environment, because I see now on LinkedIn a lot of people saying like, oh my God, like I'm adjusting to this new reality, and there's 500 people applying for the same role, and it's inverse of maybe 3 years ago, where these same people would be getting recruiter emails like every couple days and kind of like swatting them away. What advice do you have for those folks?
Yeah, I actually think it's a great advantage for people who have call it a different background than the typical PM. And I'll explain it. So I think during like COVID and prior up to that, the big tech boom, it was kind of an arms race. So a lot of companies would literally like purposely hire as much as they can to starve the competition of resources. And so I think it's unfortunate, but I think that was a real strategy that a lot of big tech companies did. And so now it's the inverse. It's like, okay, now we got to do real stuff. We got to make, real business, real money, all the stuff. and so for a lot of people in the market now, especially kind of like the typical candidate, oh, I've been a PM for so many years, whatever. So now they're starting to look like a dime a dozen. And so for people trying to break in, it's a great opportunity to break out in the sense that you stand out. However, I want to start with some first principles. So number one is companies are still hiring for sure. There's no doubt, like you can see it. Second thing is, I think there are a lot of startups that are, despite what you read, where like we're one as well. Like there are a lot of startups still getting funding and growing, but they're more real. So in a way, that's good. And so I think for candidates who want to break in, I actually feel like this is a really good time because now you can stand out with your different, diverse, great background, right? Like meaning, hey, I led these initiatives, I did all these things, and that would map really well to this role in this company. So I think really kind of knowing that there is a fountain waiting and willing to go after it is a great mindset. And I think it's important to have that.
Jesse, this has been a great conversation. I'm sure people will find this very, very helpful. Are there any other topics or pieces of advice you wanted to share with folks who might be watching on replay?
Yeah, just the two quick ones. So number one is obviously you got to make an amazing resume and do a thought experiment. Um, don't reinvent the wheel. Meaning, find a really good resume. You can copy the formatting and the way they present their experience is key. And I would say, go on LinkedIn, Google for a bunch, print them all out, throw on the floor, and say, does yours stand out? You need your resume to stand out in a good way. So that's one that'll help you getting discovered, getting picked for an interview. The last piece of advice, this is a whole other talk, and that is interview preparation. How do you prepare for an interview, and how do you have the right mindset for it? But I'll give you a really quick thought experiment. So for everyone who's listening, let me ask you a question. Imagine during an interview, I ask you, what is your strength? What are you strong at? What are you good at? And I think I've calculated this. I've literally interviewed well over 1,000 people. And I can count at least 10 seconds, and usually they're just flustered. I don't know any weaknesses. I'm a perfectionist. What are your okay? What are your strengths? What are you really good at? 1, 2, up to 10. Yeah, I work really hard. However, if I say, let's imagine you're Superman. Do you know who Superman is? 99.9% of people do. Some people don't, but whatever. Okay, you are now Superman. You got it? Good. What is your weakness? Kryptonite. What are your strengths? I can fly. I can run really fast. And no hesitation, like instant. They know it.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Right. And so for me, it's really kind of this mental model of having a clear picture of who you are. And the problem with you is you're ambiguous, right? There's at work me, at home me, morning me, night me, whatever. But when it's Superman, it's just Superman, right? And so I think as you start preparing for interviews, think about the super version of you. Have that prepared ahead of time. Now you can answer every question consistently as that person. And so those are the two advices that I have.
Yeah, let me ask you a quick follow-up on the resume one.
Yeah.
When you are looking at a resume for the first time, or let's say you're looking at 10 of them, what goes through your mind as you're trying to process these resumes and see if any of them are the right kind of match for your company?
Yeah, it really comes down to, at least I have a very long-term view of hiring. I think, hey, I want this person to be on our team for like 10 years, or at least potential. And so when I look at that, goes the foundation there. Meaning, it's going to be very typical, like skills, experience. But then I look at the other things, like attention to detail. What other interests do they bring? What other cultural values they might bring that would align with us? So there's a lot of other soft things I would look for. But really, it comes down to, when I look at a resume, it's like, ooh, do I want to talk to this person? Is this interesting? Because a resume is really a story. It's a story about you and your origin and why you want to be here. And so if that can surface through, then even if you're not a great role, like a fit for right now, maybe I would hire this person because there's such an amazing talent grab. I want to grab that now. But yeah, I would look for all those things.
Makes a ton of sense. Yeah, that was me when I interview folks. Sometimes if I see a really interesting hobby or personal interest, like, oh, they, climbed Mount Everest or whatever, like, I'm like, oh, I'd love to talk to that person. So that would be, yeah, I totally agree. Like, of course, you want to nail the basics and demonstrate that you either have done a similar job or you've got the kind of competencies to do the job that you're interviewing for. And then if on top of that, there were some other handles that are kind of just easy to grab for the hiring manager to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I want to chat with them about this startup that they founded or whatever. That's super cool as well. And then on your point about interviewing, I totally agree. And want to emphasize to people, even if you have been successful in most things in your career, whether it's educational achievement or your last job or last internship, the skill of interviewing versus the skill of actually delivering in the real world situation are almost different things.
Yep.
It's like running for a political office and actually governing, like two different skill sets. And people just need to understand like that that interviewing is a skill you've got to practice and put time into. So really appreciate and like your example where you'll ask very obvious questions, and sometimes it's clear like they literally have not thought about this question. And in fairness, it's like, well, they never get asked that in their day job. Like, what's their biggest strength? So, but it's something you have to prepare for. It's like anything. It's like training for a marathon.
Yep. Yep.
All right, Jesse. Well, thank you so much for coming on. How can people learn more about you and Tanda? We didn't really get a chance to talk about your day job. You've been so generous giving advice to people. How can they learn more about you?
Yeah, I think hit me on LinkedIn and check out our website, www.mytanda, which is mytanda.com. We're a fintech company helping small business workers have a life-changing experience where they can achieve financial security with their friends and coworkers by forming saving circles. And so, yeah, definitely excited about that. And our mission is to help people, reach financial security, or at least make it closer. And part of that is also helping people grow their careers and laddering up their jobs and all these things. So definitely, this is part of our mission too. So definitely excited to talk to you about this. But we'll be doing a lot on our company and even publishing more content in this area.
Love it. And is Tanda currently hiring? Are there roles that you want to tell people about that they can know about?
Yeah, we're always hiring, looking for good people. But right now we're very strategic about that. But yeah, definitely more on the business development side is something we're looking at. And also, we're always open to learning about future hires too, right? It's like, oh, okay, we just hired some people in this area, so it might be a little while before we hire the next one. But it can't hurt to reach out, because then when we're ready to open the floodgates for the next wave, we already have that pipeline there. So yeah, definitely.
Good example of playing the long game. So appreciate you coming on the show, Jesse, and have a great rest of your weekend.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Tom. And thanks to all the viewers. And yeah, definitely excited and grateful to be here.
See you next time. Bye.